Throughout the month of November, we have been investigating the issue of homelessness around the region, exposing the epidemic in a way that not many have seen before. And tonight, we hear from the man appointed by the city who is supposed to fix the problem. Thanks for sticking with us. I'm John Muller.
And I'm Tamsin Fidel. Well, Pix 11's Mario Diaz and Jay Dow showed us just how bad the crisis was in a series of reports. One person, though, we didn't hear from, Department of Homeless Services Commissioner Gilbert Taylor.
My name is Gilbert Taylor.
You would not be faulted for failing to recognize Department of Homeless Services Commissioner Gilbert Taylor. Earlier this week, the mayor announced a $3 billion initiative for supportive housing for the homeless. There was Taylor, standing in the background.
What kind of grade would you give yourself since you've taken this position? A, B, C?
I would definitely give us an A for effort.
Taylor granted our interview request following a flurry of emails during our week-long series of reports on homelessness. The first issue we brought up had to do with exactly how much Taylor's agency is spending every month with your tax dollars to house homeless families in corporate hotel rooms across the city on an emergency basis. We first told you about Stephanie Moore's family and their plight earlier this month.
It's emotional, disturbing, financially. I can't deal with it. It's bad. And I don't want to give up on my family.
We are always looking for capacity. We have used commercial hotels for capacity on a short-term basis in our system.
Taylor denied DHS is overpaying for these hotel rooms. In fact, just hours before this report was set to air, a spokesperson told Pix 11 News the agency now pays an average of $158 per night, per room. But they would not provide official documentation or specifics.
We are in commercial hotels, that is correct.
It was a year ago this week a report emerged detailing how DHS attempted to book 100 rooms at this Radisson Hotel in Jamaica, Queens, and then reportedly withheld the fact that homeless people would be staying in those rooms. Hotel management promptly canceled the reservation. More concerning, there's no easy way to find out how much DHS is paying for these corporate hotel homeless rooms. The process, as described by a prominent city official, appears to lack accountability. Quote, DHS takes its request to the city comptroller's office, which then authorizes an emergency procurement. That allows DHS to go out and spend the approved amount of money. But at that point, the comptroller's office has no say in how much DHS spends on each hotel room. The city official goes on to say it is incumbent on DHS to get the best deal, whatever the market is bearing.
I'm sitting here and I'm listening to you, and all that I'm hearing is that everything is good or great. We've made great progress, and we're doing everything that we're supposed to be doing. That's what I'm hearing.
So what you're hearing and what I'm saying, I think, may be misaligned. I can tell you this, right? We are doing the very best work that we can possibly do in this administration.
For Mayor Bill de Blasio, this week's news on homelessness has been bittersweet. The good news, the supportive housing announcement. As for the bad, a New York Times Siena poll showing that 62% of those surveyed disapprove how the mayor is handling the homelessness issue. Then on Thursday, NYPD Commissioner Bill Bratton revealed some dissension within the ranks.
A mistake that the administration made early on was not, if you will, validating what we all were seeing. The problem was increasing. As this homeless problem it hasn't crept up on us, my sense of it has exploded in the last 2 years.
For Commissioner Taylor, these are indeed challenging times.
I will tell you that, yes, we've done a lot. Yes, we have a lot more to do. I acknowledged in this conversation that there are capacity constraints. I acknowledged in this conversation that there are more programmatic opportunities that we're pursuing.
But remember what he said earlier.
I would definitely give us an A for effort.
How about in terms of results?
Results, I would say that there too, we have done a lot in terms of moving over 50,000 people from shelter since July of last year.
Still, the number of people in New York City shelters has seen record highs under Commissioner Taylor's tenure. And those shelter stays are not getting any shorter, a fact the commissioner had a hard time admitting.
In 2011, under Mayor Michael Bloomberg, the average length of a stay for a family in a New York City shelter, according to the mayor's management report, was 11 months. It is now 17 months on average. Why have we seen this ascent in the last few years?
So again, I would have to check that data point because I don't believe...
I have it right here.
Well, I believe what you have in your hand might be what you're relying upon, but I would have to check the data point to conform and to confirm what it is that you're representing.
I'm relying off of the mayor's management report right
What
here.
we know is that the shorter length of stay in shelter for any individual is a better outcome.
Even when confronted with the hard numbers, straight from the latest management report issued by his boss, the mayor, Taylor simply refused to acknowledge the latest City Hall data.
I would say our data would rebut the notion of families languishing in shelter, because that is not the case. At this juncture,
I have this report
at this juncture,
Commissioner, right here.
As we sit here,
right here, Commissioner Taylor, and I sit right here, it shows that the fiscal
as
year
we sit here today
has been 534 days. Commissioner, that's fiscal year 15. That is up 30 from last year. That's still a jump, and you're saying that that's not existing? I'm looking at a report that states this with your name attached to the top of it.
It became evident that Commissioner Taylor did not want to address our inquiry. And near the end, as his communications director tried to cut off our interview, we tried one last time to get Commissioner Taylor to comment on the stats in the report that has his name on it.
Is that number, is that 534, is that correct, yes or no, sir?
Sir, all I can say to you is read our operational plan, get a sense of exactly the work that we're doing. The mayor's management report, I don't refute any of the information that's in the mayor's management report.
Here's another stat from City Hall. Under Commissioner Taylor's tenure, the number of homeless people in the city's shelter system has jumped approximately 15%, from 53,000 to nearly 60,000 people.
But you hear those stats and you hear what Commissioner Bratton said yesterday. This has been an explosive issue for the city over the last 2 years. You talk to DHS and Commissioner Taylor, he'll tell you they have been spending millions of dollars to prevent the crisis from getting bigger.
Mueller Pix 11's Mario Diaz and Jay Dow have uncovered new details in their weeks-long investigation into New York's homeless crisis. Tonight, they sit down with the city's comptroller to get some answers. Why is the city paying more than double the average room rate for hotels to house the city's homeless? They're sticking you with the bill as well. Here's Jay and Mario with more.
I say the letters DHS. What's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Dysfunction.
New York City Comptroller Scott Stringer did not hold back when discussing the New York City Department of Homeless Services and the agency's continuing practice of placing homeless families on what is described as an emergency basis in hotel rooms across the city.
It's sickening that we have people living like this with no hope to get out of the homeless shelters.
Stringer sat down exclusively with Pix 11 News to discuss one of the more disturbing findings from our ongoing series of homelessness, No Place to Call Home.
I think the way you're approaching this raises a lot of questions for elected officials in the city.
At the top of that list, Mayor Bill de Blasio, who back on November 6th described the challenges ahead.
Our job is to throw in the kitchen sink. Get every tool we have and use it.
City Hall staffers promised we would get answers from Homeless Services Commissioner Gilbert Taylor. It took 11 days, as well as a barrage of follow-up emails. But it happened.
What kind of grade would you give yourself since you've taken this position? A, B, C?
I would definitely give us an A for effort.
While Commissioner Taylor was quick to say he and his agency are passing with flying colors, he was reluctant to admit family shelter stays are now longer under his watch.
I would say our data would rebut the notion of families languishing in shelter, because that is not the case. At this juncture,
I have this report
at this juncture,
Commissioner, right here.
As we sit here,
right here, Commissioner Taylor, and I sit right here, it shows that the fiscal
as
year
we sit here today
has been 534 days.
Internal DHS records obtained by Pix 11 News show a consistent reliance on booking hotel rooms for homeless families, in some cases up to 50 days at a time, much longer than the standard 10-day temporary stay. It's a practice DHS critics say amounts to human warehousing. We also found DHS operatives are routinely booking those rooms with taxpayer dollars for much more than you might pay for the very same room.
When you throw money at something without thinking about where we're going to be 5 or 10 years from now, that's even more incompetent than we would like.
In fact, according to those same records, in the last 48 hours, DHS paid $245 for a homeless family to stay at the Skyline Hotel in Midtown Manhattan. More concerning, though, is how your tax dollars are being spent at this Quality Inn near the Queens-Nassau County border. Records show since October 12th, Commissioner Taylor's team has been booking up to 15 rooms per night at that Quality Inn, with lengthy reservations that stretch into the new year at a locked-in rate of $175 a night.
But as Jay and I discovered, we can go online and get those rooms for $151 a night.
And even less.
On more than just one night. They're wasting dollars.
There is a questionable pattern that is very disturbing.
Parents we met at a Holiday Inn on Staten Island told us they were placed in a stripped-down room, barred from entering the hotel's common breakfast area, and instead were given boxed lunches filled with cold sandwiches, rotten fruit, and according to the families, were offered no social services. It was a scene
you can't record in here.
The hotel did not want the public to see.
There is a real issue related to putting families in hotels without services, without kitchens, without the resources that our children need.
What do you say about Commissioner Taylor and his performance?
Look, the mayor has the right to appoint the members of his administration, and he has the right to fire the people in his administration.
Stringer also did not mind weighing in on Commissioner Taylor's self-described A for effort.
No one should grade themselves.
What grade would you give him and his agency?
I'll let you know when I finish the audits.
What's your early call?
My early call is we shouldn't be about spinning and grading. We should be about getting the work done. And I think it doesn't matter what you think, how you think you're doing. The facts speak for themselves.
New York City's chief financial officer reveals exclusively to Pix 11 News his staff is currently in the process of digging deep into DHS's financials and the way the agency cares for homeless families. We reached out to DHS for reaction to the figures in our report and Comptroller Stringer's comments. They did not respond to our request.
Now, that nightly rate of $175 a night at the Quality Inn in Queens amounts to more than $5,400 a month. To put that into perspective, one of the popular rental websites currently lists 4 different properties for rent in that neighborhood, including an entire house with 4 bedrooms for $2,700. John and Tamsin.
Nothing's changed. Absolutely nothing's changed. I feel no change. It's the same thing all over again. There's no help.
Robert, a homeless father, says he does not mind having his identity revealed and wants his story told. It is a sentiment we heard repeatedly from several homeless families, and it comes at a time when New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio and his administration want the public to believe they are turning a new page in the homeless crisis.
I don't know what movement they're talking about.
Homeless families did not mince words when asked how the city, under a new homeless services regime, is now handling their cases. Many tell us they are emotionally beaten down, their problems falling on deaf ears.
Nobody cares. Don't care about homeless people, okay? Nobody cares. Okay?
It is a brutal murder shocking the entire city.
For months now, Pix 11 News has been investigating security at the city's designated homeless hotels, where homeless families are housed along with regular paying guests and often subjected to a glaring lack of security.
This is an atrocious crime.
That was New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio back on February 10th, hours after a homeless mother and her 2 children, just 1 and 2 years old, were stabbed to death at the Ramada on Staten Island. The city admitted there was no security on site at the time of their deaths. In response, the mayor promised hotels would have access to increased security.
That will be available immediately at no charge to the hotel.
Mayor de Blasio also added he would begin to wean the city off its dependency on homeless hotels.
Stop using hotels. That is our goal. There will be moments when, because there's a particular need, we may have to turn to hotels, but the goal is to use hotels less and less and eventually stop using hotels altogether.
6 weeks later, we decided to investigate for ourselves at the end of the city's self-imposed 90-day review period. Our reporting took us to this day's inn in the Bronx during the same week in April when the NYPD reported 2 more homicides inside the city's shelter system. Watch as a Pix 11 News photographer strolls right through the front doors, past the front desk worker sitting behind bulletproof glass, and into the elevator. There was no security in sight. A little more than 30 seconds later, he was on the same floor where the city housed homeless families. Suddenly, a woman and child emerged from a room in front of him. Imagine for a moment if our photographer was there to do harm. Here's a second hotel, the Par Central Motor Inn in Jamaica, Queens. A notice on bulletproof glass clearly states the business is cash only. Internal city records obtained by Pix 11 News shows this is another of the city's homeless hotels, which earns significant revenue by billing the de Blasio administration to house the homeless, all on the taxpayer's dime. Rooms here can be rented either overnight or for as little as 4 hours. In a matter of minutes, we checked in without a reservation and walked up to our room, which was directly across from M, a young homeless mother who says she has been living here for 2 months and counting. There was not one security guard on our floor.
There's children and stuff on this floor, and you guys rented a room right across the hallway from a small child. So you could be anybody. You could be a pedophile, you could be anything.
For the homeless families living here who are struggling to find stability, this is not their night. No kitchen, tattered rugs, along with company climbing the curtains. Over the last 12 months, a law enforcement source tells Pix 11 News, the NYPD has responded to several disturbing crimes at this hotel. Domestic violence, assaults, indecent exposure, to name a few.
Do you feel safe here?
No, because anything can happen at any time.
The same source describes this hotel as out of control.
Shut that off. You can't record in here.
If any of this looks familiar, it is because last fall, in an exclusive interview with Pix 11 News, we exposed former Department of Homeless Services Commissioner Gilbert Taylor for not having a true understanding of the homeless crisis, even when we presented him with his own facts.
I would say our data would rebut the notion of families languishing in shelter, because that is not the case. At this juncture,
I have this report Commissioner, right here. I think I'm looking at a report that states this with your name attached to the top of it.
Not only were homeless families languishing in shelter, but our investigation revealed the city relied more than ever on hotels to essentially warehouse homeless families in rooms that in some cases were right next door to regular paying guests. Records obtained by Pix 11 News clearly show the city spent at least $3.5 million on hotel rooms during the final 4 months of last year. Additionally, the city routinely overpaid for hotel rooms, as we were able to make reservations online for much less on the hotel's corporate site. This caught the eye of New York City Comptroller Scott Stringer.
There is a questionable pattern that is very disturbing.
Less than 2 weeks later, DHS Commissioner Taylor, who was appointed by Mayor de Blasio, abruptly resigned.
He made a choice. I respect his choice. I support his choice.
At a hastily arranged news conference, the mayor also announced a complete overhaul of DHS and tasked Human Resources Administration Commissioner Stephen Banks to run 2 agencies. Banks' first goal? To spend the next 90 days improving conditions for homeless families. And in light of the murders at the Ramada on Staten Island in February, safety ultimately became a major initiative. However, our undercover video captured at several hotels, including this 3rd location, the Park Hotel in Flushing, Queens, clearly shows our photographer walking right through the front doors. As you can see, once again, there was no one there to stop us. And in less than 45 seconds, He was on the floors where homeless people were placed.
During our visit to a fourth homeless hotel, this Quality Inn in Brownsville, Brooklyn, homeless wife and mother Teresa Robinson says this is a life she is desperately trying to escape.
I really don't understand, and it stresses me out because I really feel like I'm stagnated here.
But as we learned, the vast majorities of rooms here are used to house the homeless. And while there is a security system in place to prevent homeless families from accessing warm coffee and breakfast available to regular paying guests,
for the last 2 weeks, right, babe? It was like what, 5 fights?
what they say they have been served up with are plenty of violent nights inside the hotel. In fact, there was no security present after an argument broke out right outside our door. Teresa says this is just half the story.
How often do you smell weed or other drugs?
Every day.
What are you smelling then?
Everything. Everything. Marijuana, cigarettes, crack, everything.
Crack?
Yeah.
You smell crack?
Yeah, when they're inside their rooms, yeah. Yeah, you can smell it when it's burning.
But that's a corporate hotel. That's a lovely place to stay when you look
That's
at
a
it on a
quality
website.
Yeah. Looks can be very deceiving.
So are the de Blasio administration's homeless stats. On April 11th, Mayor de Blasio pointed out his administration's preventative efforts have stabilized the homeless population at 57,900. But has the situation really improved? Back on November 10th of last year, the mayor's office sent out this news release promoting their self-proclaimed success in combating the crisis, stating the shelter population consisted of 57,390 people. In reality, it has increased. For State Senator Tony Avella, the chairman of the state's recently created homeless task force, the numbers do not add up to success.
It's a real disgrace that you can't even trust the mayor of the city of New York or the agencies that are supposed to be addressing this problem.
Why is the administration touting it the way they are?
Because I don't think they want people to know the truth that they're not addressing this issue.
We have also found the city continues to overpay, using taxpayer dollars for hotel rooms to house homeless families. For New York City's chief financial officer, the concerns he expressed to us last fall over a lack of accountability and financial mismanagement within DHS are still with us.
How frustrating is it that DHS and HRA are still leaving you and your office in the dark in terms of being able to accurately analyze how those agencies are spending the money to house homeless families?
We are continuing to investigate and audit the Department of Homeless Services. We want to answer every question for the public and for the people who are homeless, because we've got to make sure that the city is spending now the $1.7 billion on homeless services in the best way possible.
Even Robert, the homeless father living at the Motor Inn in Jamaica, Queens, says taxpayers are being fleeced.
It's ridiculous because a 2-bedroom apartment doesn't even cost half as much.
We also discovered homeless families, even after a new change in management, are enduring longer hotel stays before finding permanent housing. What former Homeless Services Commissioner Gilbert Taylor referred to last November as short-term 10-day emergency stays have since ballooned into 30, 90, and now even 120-day residencies.
What's changed in the last 90 days?
Nothing.
The crisis has gotten so out of hand, the city is relying on new hotels to find shelter for homeless families. City records show last fall, this Super 8 in the Bronx, the 5th homeless hotel we visited, was designated to house strictly homeless adults. But during our visit...
How many homeless families you guys got? Is you guys fully booked with them?
No, not really. We have like few rooms, I think it's like 20 rooms, 25 rooms.
The front desk clerk told us they are now housing homeless families. And remember, the city's continuing reliance on hotels to house the homeless is a blatant contradiction to what the mayor said after the murders at the Ramada Homeless Hotel on Staten Island.
Stop using hotels. That is our goal.
You might be wondering if there are any potential legal issues with the de Blasio administration's continued use of these homeless hotels and obvious lack of security. Well, our investigation found a federal law
on the books now for almost 2 decades, that bans sexual predators from living in public housing. Inside New York public housing facilities, that ban on sexual predators is indeed in place. Just as importantly, the New York City Housing Authority coordinates with the NYPD to ensure a visible security presence, with police officers patrolling inside and outside housing developments. The bottom line, these living spaces, provided by the City of New York, offer protection for the people who live there. This overall lack of security in hotels that house homeless families is the new norm, and highlights a disconnect between what Mayor de Blasio and his team says about the safety of these homeless hotels and what we have shown you for months. The result? This crisis continually flies under the radar.
Is it fair to say that some improvement in that area should have been made in the months since those murders?
Well, there actually is 24-hour security at all shelters.
Although we were able to walk into homeless hotels with no security in sight and get up to floors where homeless parents and children are currently staying, HRA and Homeless Services Commissioner Stephen Banks still insists these facilities are safe. Keep in mind, there have been multiple homicides inside the city shelter system during a recently launched NYPD assessment period.
The city has added new hotels to the list of facilities that house homeless families. In many cases, the security is not just inadequate, but non-existent. Since we've last spoken, several months have passed. Why?
Well, first of all, as you know, we've asked the police department to do a thorough review of security in all of our shelters. They've sent over a management team to do that. They're in the process of doing that, and we're going to be guided by what the police department says needs to be in place.
The potential danger waiting for homeless families in hotels was not lost on the senior U.S. Senator from New York.
These are families who are being housed at these hotels for
children.
Sure, and I'm sure predators know this is a place to go.
Exactly. Senator Schumer sits on the U.S. Senate Committee on Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs. He expressed deep concerns over the way families and adults are being housed inside of hotels, especially in light of that federal law, which he supported, that bans sexual predators from public housing.
It is amazing to me that there is no security there at all. If they can walk right in, the damage they can do is just enormous. Now, I don't know what the city's explanation is, but they ought to change it and fix it right away. The hotels themselves are not good places for the homeless.
Back at the Par Central Motor Inn in Queens, Robert, who says he has been in and out of homeless hotels for the last 2.5 years, describes this as a life on the edge.
These hotels are supposed to be safe for people, and that just goes to show that it's not.
While Senator Schumer was shocked at the number of families inside of these hotels as well as the lapse of security, you might be more stunned at the fact that these cash-only hotels that can be rented out in blocks of 4 hours that house bulletproof glass in the lobby, well, it appears that these hotels are not going away anytime soon.
And Commissioner Banks tells Pix 11 News that this taxpayer-funded practice is just part of the process. It has no immediate alternative solution. As for security, a spokesperson for DHS tells us that security is different in hotels than it is in a traditional shelter, but adds security guards should be patrolling the halls. We should also note the city's homeless population eclipsed 58,000 this month.